Welcome to DIYeasycrafts.com. Today we're going to take a look at the CRB Advanced hand wrapping system for making fishing rods. Now today we're going to cover the setup and rigging. I bought the 2-spool model, and it comes with a tensioning rod that you have to glue into a little hole on the back of the base plate. It comes with tip-top glue. You just heat it up a little bit with a flame, apply some glue, and when you're inserting the tensioning rod, just make sure that the tip top or the eyelet on the top of that rod is facing forward. The arms can get mounted on both sides of the base plate. They mount from underneath with a bolt, and then they have a washer and a spring and a small washer and a tensioning knob. And this allows you to slide them slightly in and out, an inch or so. But sometimes that's important because you can get those arms out of the way of the eyelet that you're working on. Next step is just to slide the slider into position. And then mount the spools. Now I bought the 2-spool model. In hindsight, I really should have bought the 4-spool model. The very first pole that I made was a red, white, and blue wrapping on the guides, and a 4-spool model would have made it a bunch easier for only a few extra dollars. When you're putting the spools in place, just make sure you put everything back in the same order that you took them off. The rod gets held onto the arms with these little, you call them rubber bands or hair scrunchies. They just wrap over. But they really hold them nicely and still allow the rod blank to spin. It's a smooth felt type ring. Now here's the setup. So number one, the thread's going to go from the spool through the eyelet directly in front of the spool. Then it's going to go up to the tensioning rod eyelet, down to the center eyelet, forward to the eyelet on the slider, and then you can begin to wrap. If you wanted to take a closer look at that diagram, you could just rewind and pause the video. So here we're going to go through the eyelet in front, then up through the eyelet on top of the tensioning rod. The tensioning rod, you do have to thread the thread through the eyelet with a tip top. All of the other eyelets are open-ended, so you can just put the thread through from the side. That tensioning rod, you have to adjust the tension so that it's set correctly. And you do that with the tensioning knob on the thread spools. That tensioning rod, under the correct tension, should face forward, should tilt and point directly towards you. So if it's pointing too high or higher than directly at you, then you don't have enough tension. And if it's pointing down at your toes, then you have too much tension. If you get it somewhere in the area pointing directly at you, you will have the correct tension for each wrap when you're wrapping a guide. Now, on the plate alone, I organize it. I can keep my razor blade in the groove, in the sliding groove. I've got my scissors. I also keep a pair of tweezers. You can see that I keep the eyelets in that little pocket on the right and the glue in the pocket on the left. All I'm really showing here is if you're organized, it goes a lot easier. Just put whatever you're going to use back in the same place. Wrapping the guides, I wrap 2 times around, and then I bring the left thread over the right. And you could of course, do this in any direction, so that that thread that you wrapped over then continues to lock the loose end in place. When you're starting out, don't worry about getting the threads nice and close and tight to each other. You can clip off the loose end now that it's locked in place. And then you can just push the threads over so that everything is nice and tight. Then that tensioning rod is going to keep the correct tension, and you can begin to wrap your guides. The guide in this case is held into position temporarily, just with a little bit of masking tape. And once I have enough threads holding that guide foot onto the blank, I'll remove that masking tape. You could also hold the guides in position with glue You can use these little guide rings, cut from tubing. And on this system, you just spin the blank by hand, and you stop when you're about 5 wraps from where you want it to end. You put a loop of thread through, a spare loop, and then continue to wrap for 4 or 5 more wraps. Put your finger behind so that you're securing that thread into position, and then you can cut that tensioning thread. So here we go. I'm going to put my finger behind. With my scissor, I'm going to cut the tensioning thread. I'm going to put the loose end through the loop created. In this case, it was done with a blue thread, so you can see it a little bit better. Once the thread is through, I'm going to hold tension on that end, and I'm going to grab both ends of the blue loop and pull it through. That blue loop is going to catch, in this case, the red thread, and pull it under the existing threads. And then I'm just going to use a razor. I'm going to hold that razor nice and flat against the blank and just apply a little pressure to cut. Try not to saw with the razor. You'll end up with a frayed end. And this is the finished product. This is one of my first wraps or attempts at wraps with this new system that I bought. The CRB Advanced hand wrapping system for making fishing rods. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I ask that you please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this YouTube channel. By all means, check us out on the web, DIYeasycrafts.com. I've got a bunch of fishing and other outdoor related how-to projects on there. Thank you very much for watching.